you ready for this?
Gonna be fun.
You will not stand in my way.
Frostborn. Hunger. This pleases me.
I do not fear you, mortal.
Your soul shall be mine.
Don't make me laugh.
Needs a brew? Oh, I do. Feel a shredding, baby. Let the battle begin.
Hello and welcome to the 29th episode of Trollin HGC, a Heroes of the Storm podcast focused on esports and a member of the Trolls.gg Entertainment Network. I'm your host, LiQuid, and I'm joined today as usual by Bahgz. How's it going, man?
What's going on? I'm do this excited for NA, and then we're excited to Gilly.
Absolutely. And you spoiled it. But hey, everybody, Gillyweed is here joining us. We're really excited. How's it going, Gillyweed?
I'm doing well. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
Awesome. Oh,
it's going to do that a few times, just so you're aware.
She's so excited, she's flipping the lights off.
Perfect timing.
It was. That worked out perfectly. So, as everybody knows, before we actually jump in and actually go through some of this stuff, we want to thank our patrons over at patreon.com/TrollsGG. We share that with all of the Trolls.gg Entertainment Network. If you're looking for a way to support us, head over there and go ahead and throw us some kind of subscription. Also, the Troll of the Week this week, he has been it once before, but we felt like this is a unique opportunity for him. So Super Dave is actually our Troll of the Week again this week. Thank you, Super Dave. He's always in chat. And actually, when we announced Gilly was going to be on the show, he clipped us. I don't know if you remember, it's probably a while ago, but you guys were going over Superstars top cheers, and Super Dave was up there, and you're like, gosh, I love that name. And he's like, look, Gillyweed loves my name. So we absolutely had to do Super Dave again. It's a great name, isn't it? So thank you, Super Dave. He's always hanging out with us after show games. He's always hanging out with us in chat. So thanks, man. You are our Troll of the Week again this week. All right. So we got a little bit of news, and I promised Bahgz that my bumpers were working. So let's get some news.
Tonight on the Trolls.gg Podcast Network, Trollin HGC proudly presents Heroes eSports News, Notes, and Drama with your hosts, LiQuiud and Bahgz.
All right, so it's still a light news week because Halloween holidays, and we're hoping that Blizzard will release the HGC all the information dump, but in the meantime, Dillix released an article on the HGC website where he interviewed Grubby. It was actually pretty cool. You were in China with Grubby, Gilly. Was he like constantly swarmed by people?
Oh, yes. Yes. He has a lot of fans there. It's really cool.
Yeah, it sounded like it. Reading the article and reading some of the other stuff beforehand about how Grubby going back to China is like a huge thing. So it was kind of cool to read that article afterwards. I was curious if he was as swarmed as it made it sound in all those places. Cool, that's awesome. And then the only other thing that we're going to mention, Creators of the Storm is actually coming up soon. That's a tournament that we put on here at Trolls.gg for various creators of podcast content, website content. So we have some Town Hall heroes, some Lords of the Storm, people like that, all coming on, doing a little 4-team tournament. We mix up all the teams. That'll be a lot of fun. That's February 24th at 1 p.m. You can find more information at trolls.gg/COTS. Cool. See, we got through all of that really quick.
Wait.
What?
He coughed. The Weekly Blizz will also be attending.
Yes, the Weekly Blizz will also be there. Yes, that's Squaz. All right, we got through that pretty quick. I'm gonna dump a bumper, and we're actually gonna start what everybody came here for. We're gonna start our interview. Okay, so let me once again, I want to thank you for joining us, Gillyweed. We have lots of questions. Some of them were Reddit provided. Some of them were just podcast, like general questions we asked everybody we have on the show. Some of them were from our Discord that people sent us. So we're just going to jump right in with like all of the early-ish years, if you will. Where did you grow up?
Babyweed. I grew up in Kansas, actually, which is very strange to people. And not like Kansas City, Kansas, like farm, western Kansas.
Wow.
So really, you're actually Dorothy.
Sure. I even have a dog that's just about like photo size. It's pretty perfect. Yeah, I grew up in Kansas. I went to college in Kansas, and then I moved to Austin, Texas after college. That's where I met my husband, and we've been married for about 5 years now. And then I moved to Los Angeles last year as a result of doing HGC.
Okay. And what did you, I know you said you went to school. What did you go to school for? College?
I went to school and majored in mass media, specifically in digital media. So like film editing. It's funny, I did a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but never wanted to be on camera, like editing, directing.
Okay.
But now I'm like flipped and I'm on the other side.
That's kind of weird. It is the exact opposite now because you're definitely in front of the camera all the time.
Yeah.
How about outside of gaming? I know you used to do a lot of videos and used to do a lot of streaming. Now with just HGC keeping you so busy, what do you do? Is there like, what do you do for fun? Is it other gaming stuff or are you doing stuff outside of gaming now?
I still play a lot of games. I've been really into my Switch lately. I finished Breath of the Wild last year. I played Super Mario Odyssey quite recently. And then I've been playing Overcooked a lot and Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time. So like a lot of Switch stuff.
Okay.
I also want and plan to get back into streaming more. I was going to start up this week, but wasn't able to. So soon, TM. Sorry, Gilly stream viewers. You guys are the most patient people on the planet, and I love you. Thank you.
That works. That works. All right.
Yeah.
And then outside of Heroes, you kind of answered this a little bit, but since we really see you only casting and you said you were going to stream some more, like outside of gaming, is there something that you do a lot of the time, or is it just it's gaming nonstop? You know, you and your husband play, because I think I've seen you guys streaming Heroes before.
Yeah,
I feel like I have.
He plays too. Gaming's a big part of our relationship.
Okay.
But outside of that, my sort of recharge away from gaming is TV shows.
Okay.
I recently just finished The Crown season 2, which was phenomenal. And yeah, just watching TV. I like going to the movies. I like hanging out with my family. We play a lot of board games. I'm really into board games. And hanging out with my dog, taking him on walks, those kinds of things.
All right. So that brings me to a follow-up question. What is your favorite board game?
Ooh, you can't do this to me.
You can give me a top three. A top three.
Probably Arkham Horror. I feel like that was the first game where, like, old Arkham Horror. It was the first game where I really started to get into board gaming. I thought it was just amazing. I didn't know the board games could be so atmospheric and cool. I also really like, I'm way more about cooperative games. I think Pandemic Legacy is dope.
Okay.
It's really neat. And then Battlestar Galactica, strangely enough, is an awesome board game if you've seen the TV show.
Okay. Cool. Let's see, where were we? And then what attracted you to Heroes of the Storm, and more importantly, casting competitive Heroes of the Storm?
Well, at the time, I was making StarCraft content, and I have always been really into Blizzard games. I played StarCraft and a little bit of Warcraft with my brothers when I was younger, and then for a graduation present, my brother got me World of Warcraft, and so I played a ton of World of Warcraft. I was in a raiding guild, and so I've always been a really big fan of Blizzard games. And then aside from that, I was playing a lot of League of Legends, and I really liked the MOBA genre. And so when I was invited to participate in alpha testing because of the StarCraft content I made, that was the first time I thought, you know, this is a game that I want to get into. I want to learn all aspects of it, and I really want to cast. And so yeah, I just started casting. Well, I started the podcast first with Anna, and then eventually we were offered to get to cast Heroes Hype.
Awesome. Yeah, and I went back because I remember you doing Heroes Hype, and I went back to check, and it was like the first 10 or 15, I think, Heroes Hype tournaments were you guys casting.
Every week.
Yeah.
Every week. It's what you gotta do. You just gotta like get started. It's gonna be real bad, and then you just keep practicing and keep doing it.
Well, so speaking of that, and I'm pretty sure this is down here further, but what we got a lot of questions of what do you suggest for new casters that want to get involved or want to learn to cast or, you know, get involved in that scene? Like, how do you suggest they start and practice?
Well, the first piece of advice I always have is just do it. Like, it's going to be rough at first, but it's just a matter of getting over that hurdle of actually just physically starting. There are a lot of really good resources out there for things like replays now, where you can download replays and get to cast. When I started, I was casting my own replays, and that was atrocious, but kind of fun at the same time because I got to make fun of myself. But you can get replays off of Master League and just practice. You can put it on YouTube and ask people what they think. I would definitely suggest getting some loved ones who will be able to provide you feedback that's not just going to be mean, and that you can take as constructive even when it is criticism.
Okay.
And then another thing is making sure that you know things like ability names is really important.
Right. And I think one other thing I would add is there's a lot of amateur stuff out there that you can cast, especially in NA. We have Heroes Hype Amateur, we have Nexus Gaming Series, we have Chair League. There's a ton of them that are more than willing to take any caster on. That's, in fact, Lauren got his start in Chair League and ended up doing Heroes of the Dorm. So like, started with Heroes Hype. Like it's out there.
Yes, there are a lot of different things, and the replay thing would be my first start, just so you're comfortable at least talking about the game by the point that you actually have an audience, but that's definitely next step.
I totally skipped this question, and I apologize because I know a bunch of people asked this. Where did Gillyweed come from? The name itself.
Gillyweed is from Harry Potter. It is the plant that Dobby gives to Harry in the Goblet of Fire, the 4th book, in order to help him with the second task of the Triwizard Tournament. I just read this book, actually. And I really like Dobby as a character, and I like Dobby and Harry's relationship. And so I wanted to pick a name that meant something to me, and so I landed on Gillyweed.
Awesome. Let's see. I lost my train of thought because I was jumping all over. Somehow I got all mixed up in the questions. But all right, here we go. Are you involved in any charities? Back to the outside Heroes questions. Because I know at one point you guys did, Heroes Hype did a big charity thing that you and Anna and someone else were casting, and I'm going blank on who the third person was. But do you have any other charities you're involved with, or are you doing anything in that realm right now?
I donate to a couple of things, but I'm not involved with anything at present. I would say my big deal is Games Done Quick, which I believe is going on right now, AGDQ.
Yep.
So definitely check out Games Done Quick because it's amazing.
Awesome. Okay. And then we had this submitted a couple of times. Let's say a fan meets you at an event or on the street. What's the right way to say, hi, I'm a fan, and ask for pictures?
Just come up to me. I think the only time when I'm not cool with that is like when I'm at the desk about to cast or like physically casting. Otherwise, yeah, I've had people come up to me on the street before and just yell Gillyweed and come up, ask for a picture. Trust me, it's flattering. It's a great thing to be able to meet you guys. It's not at all going to be something where you're bothering me.
What's that like, just being out and about and having someone screaming, "Oh my God, it's Gillyweed!" and run over?
It's kind of crazy. It's one thing when it's at an event, right? Like you expect it at an event, but I've had it once where I was just like getting my salad and I was on my way back to go play some Heroes, I think, and then someone stopped me. And then even at the airport in Kansas, when I was visiting my family for Christmas, and was getting ready to fly to Texas, someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, I recognize you. You're Gillyweed." It was like, in Kansas, of all places? Really? Really?
I mean, HGC is everywhere now, right? Like,
yeah, it's really cool. It's like I said, it's flattering. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Okay. All right. So now we get into some like early career type stuff. How do you think your time with TGN and Heroes Hype influenced your HOTS career? I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Go with that.
Well, Heroes Hype is pretty self-explanatory. That was the platform for me to start casting. It also gave me the opportunity to cast with a few different people. I mostly casted with Anna, but I also casted with Forecourt, and then I think a couple of other people that filled in. And that kind of got me started on what it's like to cast with different people, because it is very important to keep in mind who you're casting with.
Right.
as far as TGN was a lot more about like personal brand, being involved with them. They had a lot of great streamers. They still do have a lot of great streamers. And being able to become friends with them, stream with them, and learn a lot about presence and brand. That's what I would say is the biggest takeaway from being a part of TGN. Awesome.
Okay. What was your favorite moment as a professional caster so far?
Oof.
Like board games, if you can't narrow it down to one, I will accept top 3.
Okay. Well, I would say there's one that's like the most gratifying, rewarding, like emotional is probably BlizzCon Grand Finals of this year.
Okay.
Because it was MVP Black winning. It was casting with Dread after we'd casted the whole of HGC together. So there was just like, there was a lot of things about that event. But one of my favorite moments still is the Cho'Gall, the SS Hosty moment that we had in HGC where we laughed so hard. That's like just one of my favorite HGC League moments. Probably my favorite HGC League moment.
There were a couple. The part where Dreg goes, "It's a dance party." That's the clip we use in the HGC bumper. Like you guys gave us a year of like awesome, just kind of little moments where like something funny was happening in the game, and instead of being like, "Why is that going on?" it was, "No, let's enjoy this and laugh at it." And like, this is a funny moment. It should be treated as a funny moment. I've enjoyed that. I think probably more than anything when it comes to NA games itself is just like the little moments that you guys have come up with. You guys both are great casters and you do a great job together, but those little moments are like, this is quality entertainment, and this is why I watch every weekend. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Also, I have a question. So we were sitting front stage during that final, and it was funny because I see Dreadnought walking around to walk up the stairs, and Caldor, like, one arm lifts you up onto the stage, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what was that? How crazy was that? Because MVP Black had just won, like, half of the casters were already on the stage, and Caldor was just like, bloop, and up you were.
And I didn't expect it to be so, effortless. Like, I kind of flew up. Like, if you watch it, I just go straight up. I didn't even really jump, I don't think. That was pretty crazy, but honestly, I just like really wanted to be on stage because I really wanted to be a part of that moment. Okay. I had some serious FOMO going on where I was like, oh, the rest of the casters are on stage. I need to be on stage. It's MVP Black. I love them. But then what I remember the most from that is that I get on stage and Rich just like looks at me with the happiest look on his face. And Rich and I always say hi and we're like really excited to see each other, but he's never hugged me. He just comes up and hugs me, and I was like, this is the best thing about this.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So you've done BlizzCon, you've done Gold Cup World Championship. Like what are your next goals as a professional caster?
It's really weird. It's like funny to think about goals because for a long time my goal was just to cast an event, like years worth. Because even when I was in StarCraft, I wanted eventually to get into casting. It just didn't really work for StarCraft, and then Heroes was a great opportunity because it was a new game.
Right.
So that for a long time was my goal, and then I did that, and then I was like, okay, well, maybe a live event. And then I did Vegas. And then I was like, well, BlizzCon's coming up. Maybe I'll get the honor of casting BlizzCon. And then I did, which was insane. And it is still insane every single time. So then I was thinking, international event. I want to travel and go to a different country to cast. And then I got to do that in 2016. It was like, I'm running out of things to say for this. And so I sort of just switched into as long as it makes me happy, I'm going to keep doing it. It's a lot of work. As long as the work feels worth it and I'm enjoying it and, I find meaning in it, then I'm happy with that as my goal. And that's stayed that way ever since.
Awesome. All right. So this one is my own personal question.
Okay.
You and Dread did this series Beyond the Nexus, and it was right around, I think, like halfway point of phase 1 of 2017. And
Beyond the Nexus? No, it was all of 2016.
Was it?
Like a lot of 2016, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It was. Okay, you're right. So, but then it stopped.
Yes.
Why did it stop? And will we ever see it again? Because it was amazing.
Thank you. We had a lot of fun with it. Beyond the Nexus is obviously a lot of work. It was filming every week because it was a weekly show. I don't think that one could commentate HGC full-time and also do Beyond the Nexus full-time.
Okay.
But Beyond the Nexus was also created because all of Heroes' professional scene was quite segmented. You had to go to OG and Global to find Super League, which was a different format than Europe and North America, which were doing these things, and then often we're on the ESL channel, and it was very difficult for a viewer to keep up with where all these were happening.
Right.
And HGC's format fixed that, right?
Yep.
Everything is pretty much on the same thing, except China. China does their thing, but we know where they're at, right? And they come back to our live events. And so it's because HGC fixed a lot of the things going on with the hero scene that necessitated having Beyond the Nexus, but I think it still would be cool someday to have it as a way of people being able to keep up with what is a lot of content between all the regions.
One, if you think about it, right, it's easily 30 hours a weekend if you want to watch Korea, NA, and EU.
Yeah.
Easily, right? And I do that because that's what I love to do, and that's like my weekend when the season's going. But I know there are a lot of people who are out there that are like, I can't watch this much content. So a smaller show that flipped it a little bit more, like Beyond the Nexus kind of did, I think would fill that niche. But
no, I definitely agree. It's just a matter of, at least for us as the hosts, a matter of time.
Right. Okay. All right, so, excuse me, we're going into being a role model. So, and this is a good point. We had a number of people say, my daughter, my wife, my girlfriend, all look up to Gillyweed as a role model. She's in a highly male-dominated field and doing an absolute great job, like, regardless of whether, like, being female is not in the equation, you do a great job, period. But what's it like being a female in a typically male-dominated field?
It is. It's funny you had this question and then like still trying to answer. I have people outside my door that just like might walk in. Okay, they're not going to. Sorry, I like work in I stream from a co-working space. There are some definite drawbacks to it, and I would say the biggest is imposter syndrome, which is this idea of not really feeling like you belong just because you're different. I struggle with that a lot. It's a lot less than it used to be, but it can be really difficult. And especially I think from a caster standpoint, because when you go to events, most of the people there are players anyway. And like as casters, you're going to sort of be segregated anyway. I also study a crap ton, so I kind of like segregate myself away from everybody too. So it's just weird. But what I will say is that the people that you see as talent at our events never do anything to make me feel that way. Like I want to make that very clear. They're very welcoming and supportive, and I think that it's really important to know that about the heroes talent. Yeah.
No, it is. Okay, that's actually a great way to answer that question. You mentioned studying a lot, and this is a tangent that I'm gonna follow down. So, out of all of, and we'll get a little deeper into this later when we go into like specifics about how you prepare. But is it normal, the amount of studying you do? Is it normal for all of the casters? Is it like there's a couple casters that study a lot more than others? Is it about the same? Like how does that work?
Everybody has their own methods and their own things they do to prepare, which I don't think is a bad thing, because having different ways of getting to the knowledge that you bring makes sure that we have different knowledge viewpoints in general as casters. And it's really important that when you bring a group of talent together, you have different perspectives, different viewpoints, and different things that you excel in knowledge at.
Right.
For me, I would say I'm on definitely the heavier end of studying, because I just like there's a lot of different things that I want to make sure that I'm knowledgeable and ready about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This probably doesn't come as a surprise to you. Maybe it does, but you're a huge role model for a lot of female gamers out there, and doubly so for those looking to become professionals either in esports or in content creation itself. Give me pointers for aspiring female esports enthusiasts.
It's my pointers for like getting into esports are the same regardless of your gender, which is just know your stuff, do the work that's necessary. I will say as a caveat for females, some of the feedback is maybe different than what guys have to deal with. Like, I get a lot of stuff about my hair and my makeup and my clothes, and sometimes guys do too, though. Like, if you think about it, I've seen like Dread get hair tweets and wardrobe tweets.
Yeah.
So it may not be as different as you perceive as a female. And I think that's the biggest thing is like, don't automatically assume that something is necessarily because you're a female, because it can be quite easy to do.
Okay. Moving on to the casting segment. What's your research process like to prepare for casting games?
So, HGC League and then the live events are way different.
Okay.
Once the league is going, it's actually a lot more about looking at the notes that I've taken from the previous week's games, developing storylines with my casting partner, and then just like preparing my notebook.
Mm-hmm.
And those storylines are a lot more different. They're a lot different from live events, because live events are very like standalone, and league storylines actually, it can be pretty hard to keep a story going about a team week to week, especially if a team is not really showing like a lot of improvement or going through a lot of turmoil. It can be really hard to feel like you're just repeating yourself.
Right.
And so trying to make sure that you're not doing that. So that's a lot more about the league. For live events, I call it like my cram session, where I will take anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks, and it's just like marathoning VODs.
Okay.
Taking down all of the drafts of the teams who are going from the past like part, and sitting and just analyzing the crap out of their drafts to come up with patterns and different things. Pretty much anything that's in my tablet is the stuff that I have gleaned from watching VODs, like gameplay, observations, trends in drafting, interesting talents that they might take that other teams don't. Just a whole bunch of different information that I can draw on and make sure that I am just as knowledgeable about these teams that I don't cast every week as the NA teams.
Right. And it's funny that you mentioned tablet, because one of the things that I noticed this year is we went from I think Caldor was the only one with a tablet computer sitting in front of him at the beginning, to by the end everybody's walking around with a tablet. Like, there was no question. Like, everybody had their tablet and a notebook, and like it transitioned. So it was kind of interesting for me as a viewer to see, okay, so Caldor was doing this, and each of you had like your own thing, and all of a sudden it transitioned to everyone has a tablet. Just like,
we had to level up. We had to keep up with them. It is nicer. I used to have a folder and a notebook, and the folder I'd have to reprint out stuff.
Okay.
And the tablet, obviously, I can just update the Google Docs that I use.
Right.
Pretty much immediately after a match. So it is ease of use, as long as there's internet, which is not always a guarantee at an event, but usually, yeah.
Okay. Let's see. How difficult is it to build chemistry with a fellow caster?
It's kind of just dependent on the person, for sure.
Okay.
Some people you'll cast with and immediately like things just click, and that's fine. And I think a lot of that has to do with your style of casting. What things that you like to talk about, are they things that they also like to talk about? But I think the biggest thing is just, I really like to pride myself on making sure that I'm trying to do things that help my co-casters shine, and then and that involves knowing the things that they're really good at doing.
Right.
And so I try really hard to like bring those things up and make sure that I'm consciously going into a cast, especially at live events where we're switching off every single match.
Right.
Saying like, okay, what are things that I know J-Hout likes to talk about, or like what are things that Caldor likes to do that I can help facilitate. That's what I try to do.
How far, speaking of live events, how far in advance do you guys know the rotation for live events?
Ideally, a few days before.
Okay.
Sometimes it doesn't work out that we get that way, but usually a few days before.
Okay. With the format of 2017 HGC, did that work well for casters in terms of like time commitment and having rest between, or at least rest like during the season itself and other things, kind of other behind the scene things? How did that work?
It was an adjustment to go from live events, maybe 1 or 2 a month, to going to casting multiple weekends in a row.
Right.
Part of this was just a natural adjustment for those of us who were used to like cramming studying in, doing an event, and then having weeks off to recuperate. I do think it is on the side of being nearly too much.
Okay.
To make sure that you're keeping up with all the storylines of the teams, trying to keep up with things like scrims with them, and importantly, keeping up with the game and how often the game changes. It can be a lot, but it can be a lot.
Well, so is there something that you would change to make it better, or is it just kind of this is what it is and there's not really a good like lengthening the season but spreading it out so there's more gaps or something like that? I'm just throwing something out there. I have no idea, honestly. Would you change something though?
HGC is just, it's so good from the idea of constant competition, being able to give these teams this like nice time to improve and to work towards something. And it also is great in a sense of, viewers know it's like sports, man.
Right.
Like you're just going to get on the weekend and there's going to be heroes there for you to watch.
Right.
So I don't really know. I think it's just more of an adjustment and finding a good balance that works for each commentator.
Okay. Someone in chat did bring up that so we have the Trixler and the Caldor bush video where he gets pulled into the bush. Are we ever going to see a Gilly Dread type like comedy short?
We did one. Did you not see the Nazebo one?
Yes, you're right. You did do the Nazebo one.
Yeah.
That's what I get for just blankly reading chat.
No worries.
You're absolutely right.
We did Nazebo.
That's right. Can we look forward to more of those in the future? Because those are fun. Like, one of the interesting things that Trent brings up a lot is a way to bring more viewers in and more people get involved is like building the story behind everything or doing little things that like drag you in. And that I feel like those videos are one of those things. Have you heard of plans for 2018? Not?
I haven't.
Okay.
We've been separate from all of the production people and the plans that they have.
Okay.
I would like to see more of stuff about the players, like the HGC one that they just did about MVP Black. And I know it's costly. Players and teams are spread out. They don't all live in team houses like MVP Black does. But I think it is way more important that we get that kind of stuff about players than about us. Yes.
No, players are a way to really suck viewers in. Absolutely. I completely agree. And that HGC 1 video is amazing.
It's so good.
Yes. All right, where was I? All right, who are your favorite co-casters? I'm going to make that plural because I don't want to like cause you to like single one person out.
Honestly, I really like switching around and casting with people for the same reason that I told you before, that I think it's a challenge and it's a fun challenge to try to bring out what
Right.
makes that person shine. Obviously, my favorite co-caster is going to be Dread, because we have so much synergy and time built into our duo that we know we have the same sense of humor. We know what's going to make the other person laugh. So that is, it's definitely the most fun and the easiest duo. But I do enjoy being able to switch off and cast with everybody.
Okay. Whose name is the hardest to enunciate in the middle of team fights?
Some of the Chinese players were. I'm trying to think if they still like NCCCC or Nightja.
Right.
Was his name. I think some of them are just, we don't use them as much, and so they're more difficult. Like any team that we don't get to commentate regularly is more difficult.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, this was an interesting one for me. What's the focus when casting team fights, and is it just about being a rap god or something different?
I don't really know how other people approach this, but for me, as the draft is going down, I will take note of things to watch out for, and then once the draft is finished, I'll look at those again and kind of gain an idea of how are team fights going to go down? What are the things to watch out for? Are there a bunch of diving heroes versus a Malf, where it's all about, does Malf hit them with the Twilight Dream, right?
Right.
Is there an ETC, because obviously you're going to be watching for a mosh pit, because that's such a game changer. So a lot of times it's just like picking out who are going to be the playmakers and then trying to shape the team fight around that.
Okay. Let's see. What kind of stuff, this was interesting to me too. What kind of stuff goes on in the background while you're casting and analyzing, and what are the producers always saying in your ear, if anything?
Hopefully not much. The idea is it should be like 1 to 2 words, like stretch or break or something, but very little.
Right.
And
right.
hopefully not in your ear as words are coming out of your mouth. That's the idea. It doesn't always go that way. It does in the controlled HGC environment. We have an insanely good director, and the crew is fantastic. Sometimes it doesn't go that way in a live event setting when things are a lot more stressful. We're working with people who maybe we haven't worked with as much.
Right.
And then sometimes we don't have the luxury of, like this happened at GCWC, you couldn't talk to just one of the 2 casters. Anything you said went to both people. And sometimes you have language issues. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on, but hopefully not too much is coming out of your headphones.
Okay. Who has been the most unpredictable team to cast in draft that you remember?
The Chinese teams, again. Let's go back to the Chinese teams.
Right. Well, they do some weird stuff. It was interesting watching them on Kendrick's channel this year, because they always had some bizarre stuff that they pulled out.
Bizarre, but it's heckin' fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun to watch.
Absolutely.
And they make it so fun. I love Kendrick and Toucher, that duo.
Yes. I'm hoping, I'm knocking on wood right now that they're back this year, because I enjoyed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning. I would click that on at work and just enjoy it while I was working. So I'm
You're
hopeful.
Awesome.
Okay. How often do casters interact with players? It seems like Caldor's invited to scrims all the time. Do you have similar interaction or something different?
I did not watch as many scrims as I would have liked to last year. 2017 for me was sort of that adjustment period I told you about, but for the whole year, where I was like, I'm just going to get used to what HGC's like, and then I'm going to figure some stuff out. And then I hit second Western class, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? I never actually figured stuff out. So my hope is that I will be watching scrims more this year.
Okay.
But yeah, it just kind of differs per caster. But you definitely want to be interacting with them a lot at live events to keep up with how teams are feeling and that kind of story. It's a little bit harder when it's HGC, the league is going on, because we'll talk to them maybe once a week. We're the ones who conduct those pre-match interviews that play.
Right.
And so that helps us kind of interact with them a bit more, but it's definitely something that I wish we had more of.
Okay. Let's see. I think this is the last caster question, and then we only have a couple more to go. How do we support casters in HGC that we like? Is there some way we can give Blizzard feedback so they keep them around? What do you know of a process we can use for that?
For one thing, let us know. Definitely let us know. And for another, you can definitely use the HGC hashtag. People are watching that and tweeting at Blizzard or just communicating with Blizzard. That'd be really cool. Okay. And we would appreciate it.
Okay. Jayhow is asking me to ask you a question.
Oh. Okay.
So I'm just gonna go with this. Do you miss X from China? Because
No. He's referring to X gon' give it to you. Which is Jayhow's favorite joke, I'm pretty sure. Jayhow, there will always be X. We'll always have X, yeah.
There you go. That's a good answer to that. All right, so this is a little more analytical. We're getting into some HGC specific questions, and this next one's definitely analytical. What do you think the next steps for NA are to compete with the best of EU in Korea?
EU's pretty hard. There is a far bigger player base, and it's a more competitive region, and it just got very competitive too after the Crucible. Korea is very weird because it is very competitive in the top 2 to 3.
Right.
And then there is a hard line, sort of I would argue North America, but North America was less so. But there were definite improvements at BlizzCon. You could see that there was definite improvement. I think part of this is that we're starting to develop more of an NA identity. EU has things that they do really well. Korea has things that they do very well. For us, part of that was Warhead Junction, and
and it's gone now.
I joke, but we are developing these things, and that's going to take time. And then I hope that as we can get some more iterations of Crucible going, then it'll be less of an issue of teams getting in because we have teams disbanding. Even though we did have Heroes Hearth, rightfully take a spot, we still do have imported or LFM coming in, which I am still very excited to see how they do. But we saw from Even in Death that takes time to get to that competitive point. Yeah. So I think it's about getting a more competitive region, having some more stable rosters, and developing our own identity.
Okay. How do you feel, or actually, what are your thoughts on the Crucible and the Motion?
The Crucible, I would actually like to see be bigger. I'm not sure how it would even be feasibly possible, because right now as we have it, bottom 2 from HGC go to Crucible, and then everyone else gets to play in the playoffs. But what I think would be really cool is if bottom 4 teams or equivalent from HGC and top 4 teams from Open Division went and played an actual tournament. And then just the top 2 teams were the teams that got in.
Okay.
But I don't even know time-wise if this is possible. Obviously, there's some considerations with, again, how the playoffs and the Crucible works. But I think it would be cooler if you could have it be kind of a full tournament, maybe even I would love for it to be a LAN, right? And then people would be able to get to go to it, but that's wishful thinking on my part.
I mean, I think everybody that watches Open Division and Crucible and the amateur scene has definitely been asking for a LAN for the Crucible, and even people that haven't, right? It feels so weird that you're playing for your position. If you're a bottom 2 team, you're playing for your position, and you have to not play on a LAN. And so you miss out on that. Maybe you're having internet problems. Maybe you're dropping packets like Bahgz is tonight. Who knows, right? But all of a sudden, you're out and you've lost your paycheck. And I get it, but
I'm laughing at Bahgz, not at the idea of the Crucible being, because I totally understand.
Right. So I definitely, I think that would be nice to see.
I think it would be too.
Let's see. We went through all that. Okay, do you think there should be a third ban?
You know, I wasn't sure how to respond to this one,
Okay.
but I asked my friend Dreadnought, and he is very for a third ban. There's definitely room for it. You know, we've had 2 bans for so long, and we've had enough heroes be added to the game that
Right.
the percentage or the ratio of heroes who are still left is enough that we could. And I think it would be neat from a sense of helping with draft diversity. But yeah, I know Dreadnought is. So there you go.
All right. Now everybody's favorite topic. Oh no, I'm sorry. There's one last question. Who's your favorite niche pick to see in pro play? And it can't be Brightwing.
What? She's like niche-ish.
I mean, it can be Brightwing, but everybody knows that you love Brightwing, so.
Let me think. Let me think about this. I need like a heroes list. Hold on.
Okay.
I don't think Tyrion's niche enough, but I do love good Tyrion. Diablo, like any of the super hyper aggressive stuff. So
Okay.
I love Diablos, good Kerrigans, when Kerrigan's just like 3-man combos.
Right.
Like any of those are pretty awesome. And Leap.
Right.
So like Sonya is obviously meta, but I would be cool with more Leap. That's all
Leap
I'm
is
saying.
excellent. And listening to you make Leap sound when they actually pick it is wonderful too. So yes,
you.
I understand that. All right. Now everybody asks about the notebook. And
I brought it.
oh my God, she brought the notebook. There we go. So the question is, what do you keep in the notebook versus the tablet? Because obviously you keep a lot of stuff in the tablet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because the notebook actually does not have nearly as much stuff as I think people think it does. I'm trying to find a good example to show you. Here's a good example. So there's going to be a whole lot of writing.
Yeah, there is.
But the first thing is that it has spots, trees for drafts. And like I said, I will like take down who I want to follow in team fights from that.
Yep.
It'll have map picks, map bans, and well, map picks is just who's second pick.
Right.
When there will be a section for notes I want to talk about before the series, and then there will be a section of notes on the games. And the notes on the games is really important because it helps build storylines for the next day for a live event or for the next time I cast that team.
Right.
So it's just all about like that day, the notes from that for the future and going forward. Whereas the tablet is all the stuff from the past, old drafts, old talents that are kind of weird that I should keep an eye on. Hero pools and the win rates that they have with those heroes. Favorite maps, typical map bans, analysis of their draft. Just a whole lot of data that I can draw on when I'm talking about a team.
Okay. And then the last question we're going to ask is, one Redditor did point out, or ask actually, would you ever auction it off or raffle one of your old notebooks?
No.
Okay.
Because it has so much nostalgia factor for me that I would be really sad. I just finished a notebook to finish a notebook was pretty much all of HGC 2017. Like I started the new notebook for BlizzCon. So I just could not give one up.
That's a great reason not to though. So
yeah.
All right. Okay, cool. So that is the end of the interview. Now we have the NA preview, which I promise we will fit in 40 minutes so that you're out on time.
Is Bahgz, how you doing, Bahgz?
Struggling. We're struggling. We're riding the struggle bus over here.
Oh my, it actually worked for like 3 seconds and then you froze again.
Yeah.
I actually feel really bad.
Perfect freeze frame. It's like this.
Yep, there you go. The last time this happened, it literally cleared up like 4 minutes into the show and he was fine. And tonight it's like It does not want to clear up at all. But I'm
Router
hopeful, man.
restart.
He did that before we called you.
Oh no. I'm sorry, my friend.
But it's cool. I'm watching him. He's updating questions and moving stuff around as we're talking. So I know he's following it.
Oh, nice.
So, all right, let's jump into the NA preview. So, DB Smiley put together these power rankings of teams, and he did it basically from all the media that he talked to. And I'm not going to take time to go over all of that because we have 40 minutes, and I want to get through all the teams and make sure we cover all the storylines. So we're just going to start right at the top with Team 12.
Okay.
Team 12 finished, Team 12, also known as X-Roll 20, finished first in 2017. They were rated #1 in the media poll. They made a couple of changes. They lost Glaurung, they lost Prismaticism, but they picked up Danesky and Cure. Do you think they have what they need to stay #1, even after that Gold Cup World Championship performance that they had?
Yeah, I actually do. At least at first, I think they are the most likely to be in the #1 spot, because they had the advantage of all that international experience and practice and growing together. Even though it was arguably demoralizing to them at some points, maybe it wasn't because they were the new roster and they were riding on the high of being a new roster. I would say it's probably very difficult to come in as a new roster and have so many close calls like they did.
Right.
I still think that all that experience in scrimming for that long of an event puts them as the most likely candidate to be the #1, at least at the outset. But I will say that there may have been enough time for scrims with the other teams to bring those other teams up to them. I don't know. I don't know how long of a break they took afterward. But I think that they're probably the most likely to be starting at the #1.
Okay. And then Team Freedom finished second in 2017. They were rated #2 in the media poll. Do they have what it takes to overtake Team 12? Are they kind of in that #2 spot, still a solid team, but not going to be able to break into the top 1?
Team Freedom is for sure harder for me to judge.
Okay.
Because losing both Cure and Danesky, I'm really excited that they have Yoda and Lutano. I think both of those players definitely they showed that they deserved to be put on a team, a higher caliber team than where they were at. But it's very difficult for me to look at that team and the roster 5 that they're at and judge where they're going to place.
Okay.
I would say it's going to be, hello. I would say it's going to be somewhere in the top 4.
Okay.
For me, the thing for Team Freedom I'm looking at is drafting. How having Lutano and Yoda affects their drafting. They were one of the more stable and sometimes stagnant teams with drafting.
Right.
And Yoda has had I believe he was drafting for Superstars or for at least a while and definitely at least had influence on it. So I'm excited to see what his influence brings because I think he's a phenomenal player.
Okay. How do you think they stack up against Tempo Storm then? Right. We talked a little bit about Team 12, but right below them, Tempo. How do you think they stack up there?
I would say if any team was going to be starting at 1 except Team 12, I'd put Tempo there.
Okay.
Tempo, I mean, you look at the names, you look at the relevance and where they've been, and it seems like it would be there. And I know that there's talk of potential personality clashes with this team, right? But I don't think that we would see that. I don't even know if it would happen. And if it did, I don't think we would see that from this point. I think things would start and things would be very strong from them at the start. And so that's why I put them as that high out of the gates.
So I want to dig into Tempo a little bit. They did end up #3 in the media poll. There are a lot of people that think they can definitely be in the #1 spot, but there's a lot of flexes. So when I'm reminded of GFE, we're 4 flexes and a healer. that they did, and that didn't work out so well. Now, granted, Tempo's saying, no, we have a tank in Cattle, and we have a support in June. But Cattle's also, I know he played some tank for Tempo while Fury was still there, but they went back and forth, so it wasn't naturally Cattle's position during most of 2017. With that role swap and bringing Fan and Glaurung onto the team together, which are two huge personalities, I worry that, you're right, I don't think we'll see a clash. But there's a possibility that, like, there's a clash there. Especially with Cattle being on a different... And maybe I'm just borrowing trouble. Maybe there won't be. I don't know.
I mean, it's very difficult for us to even look at a team and try to judge if that would ever be there with them.
Right.
Because there might be somebody who is difficult on a team, but then put them with another team and they're completely great. As an example, I would argue Rich. If you look at Rich, he is in the past been known for being a pretty toxic player, and now he is on the best team in the world, right?
True.
So it's really hard for us on the outside to look in, and like even when we see a team struggle, they could not have any internal turmoil. We can like perceive that they have internal turmoil, and us not really know.
Right.
But I think in general, when we see that of teams, it's very rare to be at the start of a team coming together like this. So I get what you said about roles, but I think they'll probably even out to specific roles, and they're just trying some things out until they find the best fit.
Okay. Moving on to Gale Force Esport, finished 4th in 2017, also 4th in the media poll. They lost K1 Pro and King Caffeine. They lost Fan. And Udall retired and then unretired so that he's still playing. They picked up B-Kid and Big Impact. And then they re-signed Fury, which when they let Fury go originally was one of the things I was most annoyed about. But it's a team that... Did they make enough changes to be number one? Are they still looking at middle of the pack? They can't quite get up there.
GFE Like Freedom is the other big one that's very difficult for me to gauge. I think it is very interesting and cool that they have Fury and the person that they replaced Fury with before, B-Kid, on the same team now. It feels very like we're coming back. Like we've figured it out. We're like, the family's coming home. Like, I think that's what is cool about that, in that, you know, Fury is willing to go back with GFE and even like them work together. I just think that it's neat. It's a neat story all around.
Right.
The Biggie and B-Kid element for me, that'd be the biggest question, because they're coming from a Lag F, which for whatever reason, Lag F just never measured up to their potential the entire year. And it was pretty disappointing for me. I'm sure it was disappointing for the players too.
Right.
So that's the biggest question mark for me. And that is why it's hard for me to gauge where they will be.
Okay. Let's see. Heroes Hearth. So this is an interesting one for me. I know they were in Open Division last season, and we talked before the show about how much time you guys had and not being able to watch as much Open Division. But here's a team that Crowan found himself out when GFE let him go at the end of Phase 1. McIntyre found himself without a team. They get out, they put this team together, and they won 6 Open Division Cups. And the 7th one, they finished 2nd in. So they did get beat by LFM. So they're not invincible. But I feel like this is a dark horse team to watch. They have Cawthon as a coach. They have hired a lot of different support staff around the team to try and support it. Nobody can really predict where they're going to end up. I've heard anywhere. I think DB Smiley said 3 to 7. It wouldn't surprise me. Anywhere in between there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're definitely in there somewhere. I think it's going to be a team to watch, though. Out of all of the teams we've talked about, I think they're going to be one of the more interesting teams to watch.
Yep, I wrote some notes on every single team when we talked about them, and all I put was they're one of the wild cards that could completely shake everything up. I would not be surprised if they came in and took games or series off of anybody and just completely surprised us, because part of that is they're our first team who have made it through the Crucible by eliminating another team. And if you remember, a team that did that in Europe nearly represented Europe at BlizzCon.
So close.
They were very close. So it is possible that Heroes Hearth does the same thing. And I think that that would be really cool. I have high hopes for Heroes Hearth. But I agree, you know, we have no clue, absolutely no clue, because as well as they did in Open Division, if there's one thing we know, HGC is a whole different beast.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Bye, Bahgz.
Oh no, what happened? Oh god. All right, so chugging right along, we have Space Station Gaming. They finished 5th. They're ranked 6th in the media pool. They have made a couple of changes. They added J Street, they added Tomster, and they let Talking Trees and Tiger JK go. Both of which are on Open Division teams once Open Division forms. They're in a weird place. Can they break out of the middle of the pack with those changes? Oh no, we actually lost.
Did your overlay just get ruined?
Yes, it did. No, Bahgz. I'm not gonna be able to make that clean quick. All right, it's fine. We'll keep talking.
He said he's resetting his router, so hopefully it'll just come back in the same spot and all will be magically fixed. Space Station is this team that I just have so much love for, so I hope so. I really don't know. They seem to me to be looking still more like in the middle of the pack, but last phase they did come in. They almost made it to the Western Clash. They had some really good upsets, and so I'm confident that they have what it takes to be able to continue that upward mobility. And especially, you know, getting Tomster, he really showed off as a support for LagF in the second phase. And I'm beyond stoked to see how Jay Shrita does. Just like with Arcaner and Robodoba, this is a very defining moment that a lot of players from other regions are going to look at and see, did those players succeed? Can I do that? Did they do that? I think it's really important. So I have a lot of hope for them.
Well, and he was on the show last week. I think that was last week. And, you know, we went through his story and why he was going to move and when he decided and everything. And he is probably one of the most publicly motivated HGC players I've ever talked to or just on Twitter. Like, that man he has a mission and he's sticking to it, which is amazing.
He is the only person out of all of Latin America to be at every single live event that Latin America could be at ever, except BlizzCon 2015, because you had to qualify through the Americas Championship. But otherwise, Jay Shrita is the only person who has been on every single team that's made it. He is the only unifying factor between all those teams. So he absolutely deserves to be here. I can't wait to see what he does with Space Station.
All right, so now we have two of the I don't know how to describe this, but we have two last teams. We have Old Gods. They finished Superstars finished 6th in 2017. They're ranked 7th in the media poll. They Erho and Hosty stayed. Zuna, K1 Pro, and King Caffeine have now joined, and they renamed the team Old Gods.
Can I just say I'm excited to cast a team that's, I'm hoping, OG.
Oh, right. I mean, they are, and they've all been around for a long time, right? I totally understand. But the question that I have to ask is this LagF 2.0, or is this they're gonna break out of that and they're going to surprise everybody?
When I think about people who are maybe just started watching competitive heroes this year, it makes me sad that they may not realize the potential of this team. But like, I cannot, as someone who's been casting from 2015 to now, I cannot let that potential go. And it may not, right? They may
Right.
just like coast in the 6th, 7th position, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, wherever. They may just coast there. Because like you said with LagF, for whatever reason, just did not realize what I believe was their full potential.
Right.
But I think that the names on this roster alone deserve the respect enough to say, like, I don't think, just like with LagF, you can't just sleep on them.
Right.
You got to be ready for them, because if they feel like, they'll come for you.
Well, and that's, I always wanted that. So when it was an Eventic, I wanted them to do well, and they couldn't quite get it done, right? They had moments of greatness, and then they would kind of fall flat. Even back when it was like Bob Ross fan club, I loved watching those guys, right? I watched them all the way through that, through becoming an Eventic, through becoming LagF after an Eventic's payment issues, and it never felt like they could quite get what they wanted to done. And I'm just worried about this team and it being similar. And maybe that's just because I'm worried about it. I may be worried about nothing, but I'm worried nonetheless, because I really want, in an ideal world, every HGC team will be like super good, and you'll want to cheer for everybody, and anybody can win any given week, right?
Mm-hmm. I love all of those players, and I would love to see a team with CAF, K1, Zuna, Airho, and then Hosty, who's, not really one of the old gods in the sense of the other ones, but still very awesome, like an awesome player. God, I would love to see them just like come out and just be at the top again. So I get it. I get it. I don't know if that will happen. I think that I will say that I feel like that's really on them. And hopefully.
Okay. And then the last team we have, might be
just
back.
in time.
Let's see. Oh, he's back. How is it? It's still dropping frames.
You can't hear us.
Oh, man. All right. No, you're there. You're there. Okay. All right. It looks a little better now. You can move and you can talk.
For now.
All right. So we're up to LFM. LFM.
Just in time.
Just in time. LFM is new in the season. LagF disbanded. LFM gets the spot, much like Even in Death did last season.
Mm-hmm.
Can LFM overcome Even in Death's one and done legacy of you didn't win in, so you got placed in, and can they win? Can they do better than Even in Death did, knowing that it's a solid roster?
What I would guess is going to happen is that first part is going to be extremely rough, and then they have to figure out how to start getting wins by the end of part 1, and then in part 2, if they want to be able to not do what Even in Death did. It's a huge leap, right? From top of Open Division to the bottom of HGC. It's a pretty big leap, and if it's as it seems and Heroes Hearth is as strong as I'm hearing about, then it's likely that we got more competitive, which means that it's going to be even harder.
Right.
So they're in the exact same situation. They have to make that leap. Even in Death, a lot of people talked about how they were much better in scrims than they were when they competed, and that they couldn't get the wins that they could translate in scrims. So whether that was like some sort of nerves of the actual competition, LFM has to figure out how to do it better. And I don't know the team well enough to be able to say, yeah, they have what it takes, or no, they're going to be in the Crucible again. But remember, maybe they'll have learned enough that even if they're in the Crucible, they defend their spot.
Right. That's true. And we saw that out of LagF, right? LagF went to the Crucible and they constantly won, even though they were losing during the HGC season itself. So
yeah, I always thought about LagF as an animal like backed into a corner, and that's when they start just like bringing out the claws. Like, dude, they were in the Crucible twice, and yet no one wanted to challenge them, right?
Right.
No first place spot picked them for a reason, and that's why I say, like, just keep your, like, think what you think about old gods, but, like, keep respecting them.
Oh, and absolutely, and that was the thing that always did me, and especially after the Phase 1 Crucible, where they came out and they defended their spot successfully, and it was like, okay, maybe we'll see them do a good job here in part 1 of Phase 2, and it felt very much the same. And then they go back to the Crucible again. They're like, nope, we're not giving up this spot. This spot is ours, and they kept it again. It's a very hit or miss team, and I want them to do well, because I enjoy when there's so much competition that any team could win, right? It's not, oh, this is a gimme, right? Roll 20 or Team 12 rather against LFM. Yeah, LFM's probably not going to win that, but there's a chance, and I want there to always be that chance. It's more interesting that way.
I agree.
Okay, so yeah, no problem. We got through all the teams in no time. That worked out great. Now,
nice.
Bahgz is almost looking normal.
Almost. I wish.
It's all good, man. Internet. Unfortunately, we can't control the internet. And there he goes.
It's.
But so before we leave and we all end the show, Bahgz, I know you haven't been able to talk much, but do you have any questions you want to ask that I missed, or?
I don't think so. You covered it pretty well while I was here, and I missed a little bit while I was resetting the internet there. So I think we're good, man. I think
okay.
the comment I wanted to make was hopefully I don't sound like too much of a robot, but I'd like to think that LFM, with the hiring of the Zen Master and Hero Physio, surprise some people. They're gonna take their lumps in the beginning, like Gil said, but Phase 2 or Part 2 of Phase 1, watch out.
Okay. And that's right. Daz did ask, point out one question that I wanted to bring up before we close.
Sure.
Do you think there's been a healthy impact of coaches in NA, or do you think there will be this phase since it's or this year, since more of the teams are picking up coaches this year?
I think there's already been a healthy impact. You look at Kala for Tempo Storm, and you might not have been able to see on an international level, although I would argue that even that's wrong, given how Tempo Storm did at BlizzCon. But he has been very respected by that team, and he has really put the work in and helped with the team. Kala is great. And then Aether and what he did with Team Freedom. Right. I know that he's not coaching them anymore, but he did a lot, and I met him. He's phenomenal. So that benefit's already been there, and I would only say it's going to increase as teams get, more coaches that they trust, as people, are learning the game more, and they're figuring out, what coaching means to a Heroes team.
Right. Okay, cool. Excellent. All right. So I think we're going to end there. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming on the show. And letting us badger you with lots of questions.
Oh no, it's been fun. Thank you for having me.
Bahgz, I promise I will do your shout out for you, because I know you're roboting right now, but I don't want people to miss it. So I got you covered, buddy.
Appreciate that.
Thank you all for listening to Trollin HGC, a weekly podcast about Heroes of the Storm eSports, a member of the Trolls.gg Entertainment Network. We stream live on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/TrollsGG, every week on Tuesdays, normally at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. We adjusted the time a little bit this week, and actually next week we'll have Caldor on, but that will be at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. There'll be a tweet and a Reddit thread about that, so you guys can get your questions in. Gillyweed, again, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you, and do you have any shout-outs that you'd like to give?
Please watch HGC. That starts on January 19th. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter, Gillyweed TV. Twitch, the stream will start soon, TM. Oh, I also have Instagram. I think it's also Gillyweed TV. I probably should know that. I just got one. And Facebook and YouTube, I have those too. Those are still Gillyweed SC too, but I don't do as much with those. So if you follow Instagram, Twitch, and Twitter, that'll be it. Shout outs to you guys. Thank you guys for having me. Shout outs to everyone who is watching. Thank you. Huge shout outs to my fans. Thank you for being patient with me. I know I haven't been as active on social media and stream, but I really do appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to another awesome year of Heroes. Thanks again.
I also will confirm it is Gillyweed TV for Instagram for you.
Thank you. I
You're
learned
welcome.
something new today.
Awesome. Bahgz can usually be found on Twitter at Bahgz HGC. You can watch him stream at twitch.tv/Bahgz. Also, if you enjoyed today's show and you're interested in Blizzard's other esports offering, consider subscribing to the Weekly Blizz, where Bahgz and Bahgz actually cover all of Blizzard's esports, and it can be found on all podcast sources. Awesome. I can be found on Twitter at LiQuidGG, LiQiuD I tweet whenever I'm going to do anything, whether it's streaming, shows, just weird stuff that I come up with, weird esports knowledge, like all of that comes on my Twitter. And thank you once again for everybody that watched. Thank you for all our Patreon supporters. Thank you for all our subscribers and followers on Twitch. If you want to support us, you can follow us on any platform, whether that's Google Play, iTunes, Twitch, Twitter. It's always at Trollin HGC. And Patreon is patreon.com/trollsgg. Bahgz is not going to be able to say his normal out. I just realized that. Oh, but he's peace outing early. Thank you, chat, for chilling out with us. I'm sorry Bahgz's internet has been so bad tonight. Everybody have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you in the Nexus.